All right, Chair Noor, to your bill, House File 135.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, we do have an urgent bill that we wanted to present. I move
Chair?
House File.
Oh, sorry. I said we need the motion, but you were about to make it.
Correct.
My apologies for interrupting. Sorry.
Thank you so much, Travis, for the reminder. I move House File 135 to be recommended to be placed on the General Register, Mr. Chair.
All right, to your bill, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. I just wanted to give a quick background on this issue. On or before December 15th of every year, each tax-paying employer with an active account is notified of their unemployment insurance tax rate for the following year. I'll do my best to explain this process, and if I make any mistakes, I know the staff and the commission are here to explain further. We all know 2020 was a year like no other year. The unemployment benefits gave Minnesotans a lifeline due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Over 1 million claims were filed by workers compared to 155,000 during the prior year. Claims are still being processed. Claims are still being processed through the system as we speak today based on the new federal program. And there's so many difficulties in terms of getting an accurate assessment for the experience rating. The federal reimbursement for the waiting week and the shared work benefits are still in the works. We haven't received all the reimbursement based on legislation that we passed previously. We also passed a legislation to ensure that benefits paid due to COVID-19 should not be used to compute the unemployment tax rate. Members, the unemployment benefits are primarily funded through the quarterly unemployment insurance tax into the Minnesota Unemployment Insurance Trust Fund. The tax system is experience rated. New employers' tax rate depends on the business type. Their type rate is based on the average rate of all Minnesota employers or high experience rating industries, whichever that may determine the new employers. Just to give you another quick background, the employer's tax rate is based on the formula that takes into account 48 calendar months ending on the previous year on June 30th. It's calculated by dividing 125% of the unemployment benefits charged to the employer's account by the total taxable wages paid by all their employees. As for the taxable wage base, it's 60% of Minnesota's average annual wage on June 30th of the previous year. The UI tax is paid on the gross wage paid to each employee up to the taxable wage base for the 2020. It was 35,000, which was used to compute the tax rate. The lowest tax rate that can be assigned is the base tax rate, which is 0.10% up to 0.50%. And it's determined on March 31 of the prior year. The highest tax rate that can be assigned is maximum allowable experience rating, which is 8.90% by law plus maximum base rate up to 0.5%. And it gives you 9.40%. That's how it's assessed. And sometimes there's assessment and also fees based on borrowing from the federal government. Luckily, this session, we had 0% from the federal government. That's just a quick overview of the program. And we will hear more about unemployment as the day goes by. With that, I just wanted to welcome Commissioner Groves to give us a highlight of this request or this bill.
Commissioner Groves, state your name for the record and you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Steve Grove. I'm the Commissioner of the Department of Employment and Economic Development. Thank you, Chair, members, for taking up this matter today. It is an urgent matter, and I think Representative Noor did a fantastic job of describing this. Essentially, what we're talking about is how employers pay into the trust fund that then provides unemployment insurance benefits to Minnesotans. And there are a variety of taxes that make up that trust fund pathway, but the experience rating is the one that really focuses on, what was an employer's record over the previous 4 years? How many people did they hire? How many people did they fire? This is a key element of making sure that we encourage employers to try to keep workers, on site and in their firms, and therefore keeping jobs available for Minnesotans. Of course, in a pandemic, all of that changes very rapidly, and experience ratings during a pandemic are sort of impossible to decouple from normal times. One of the things that we've recognized from the very beginning of this pandemic is there was going to be a lot of layoffs due to COVID-19 that had really nothing to do with an employer's track record or perspective or industry, but just had to do with a once in a century pandemic. And so from the very beginning, Governor Walz issued an executive order that said anybody who was let go based on COVID-19 reasons, whether they be reductions in size via consumer confidence or the need to dial back to protect people's health, that employers would be held harmless for those charges. But at the end of the day, we do need to still calculate an experience rating every year, as the representative said, to ensure that we are doling out the right or charging the right taxes for every employer. And to do so now, in the middle of really still peak conditions for unemployment insurance in this pandemic, would be administratively impossible. To go through every employer's record and parse out who was laid off from COVID versus who was laid off for regular reasons is something the program simply couldn't handle. And given statute requires us to do it, we think that the win-win situation for everyone, as the representative has highlighted here, is to hold employers essentially harmless for the last year, to say, look, 2020 was an unprecedented year for workers in our state and for businesses. And let's just carry forward that experience rating from 2019 into 2021. And then at the end of this year, go back and do that work of parsing out the hirings and firings based on the pandemic. To be clear, this really is just a win-win for everybody who's involved in the program. For employers, they're held harmless based on the pandemic. Workers don't suffer the threat of potentially having to grind the program to a halt while we divert resources to doing an immense amount of calculations, which is what it would take place, what it would require to make this adjustment now. And Minnesota as a state as a whole benefits from just having a fair level playing field based on the pandemic for the calculation of these experience ratings. I think it's important to point out, because I know a lot of people will have questions about the trust fund and how it's repaid, and you'll hear more about that a little bit later from our UI director, Jim Hegman. But raising experience ratings really isn't the way that you pay back the trust fund. The primary way that we're going to tackle that, and the states always tackle that, is through the base tax rate and through additional assessments. So this isn't a situation of us sort of kicking the can down the road of how we're going to pay back unemployment insurance. That's not this at all. This is simply making sure we can continue to administer a program effectively and hold employers harmless. I'll just add, just for context, so you know how critical it is to keep the team focused on administering the program itself. We are still administering about 380,000 weekly benefit requests every single week. So the program is kicking at all cylinders. The team is working 7 days a week to get those monies out. We're also standing up 3 separate federal programs right now, one for independent contractors, one for extending unemployment insurance, one for that $300 top off. And we're working on a 4th, which is going to be the expansion of a new benefit for those who have kind of a mixed income situation. So there's just an extraordinary amount of kind of day-to-day payment work and program administration the team is going to remain focused on. And we hope, thanks to this bill, being able to calculate those experience ratings in the future when we're on the other side of this pandemic. So, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, we urgently request that you pass this legislation and are grateful to Representative Noor for bringing it forward.
Thank you, commissioners. Members, any questions? All right, then, Chair Noor, would you like to remove?
Mr. Chair, I see
Representative Hamilton.
Thank you, Chair Zhang. And whether this is to Chair Noor or to the commissioner, how will this impact the following year? Will it go back to how it's previously calculated or have any impact at all for the following year? Thank you.
Chair Noor.
Mr. Chair, I'll defer that to the commissioner.
Commissioner?
Mr. Chair, Representative Hamilton, great question. This bill just addresses this year's experience rating calculation. So the practice would be next year, really would be at the end of this year, December of this year, we would then do the work of going back and decoupling again those layoffs that were from COVID-19 related reasons or just the normal course of business. So this is a 1-year carry forward of that 2019 rate. It's not an indefinite extension of that rate.
Representative Hamilton,
No, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
any more questions from the members? I see no hands. Chair Noor, would you like to renew your motion?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I renew my motion that House File 135 be recommended to be placed on the general register.
All right, Chair Noor renews his motion that the House File 135 be placed on the general register, and I believe the clerk will take the roll.
Noor,
Aye.
Jejong,
Aye.
Hamilton,
Aye.
Baker, Davney,
Aye.
Frankie,
Abstain.
Greenman,
Aye.
Haley, Jurgens,
Aye.
Cagle,
Aye.
Katiza Watun,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Tujong,
Aye.
going back, Haley, the motion prevailed, Chair. If you want, I can read out the vote too. $11 yes, 2 absent, 1 excused, 1 abstained.
Hello, bill passes, we move forward. Mr. Chair, you can no chair the committee again.
Thank you, Representative Jeshong, Chair, Mr. Chair. So thank you so much, Commissioner. We look forward to presenting this bill in the next few days in the House on the floor, and we'll ask for your support because this is much needed because of the delay. Many employers have been impacted by this, so we want to give them assurance and make sure that there's no harm. We can hold employees harmless during this challenging time. So